folks, and welcome to another episode of the Snowy's Camping Show. You are here with Lauren and Ben as usual, and today we're doing a bit of a different episode. We're doing a Q&A session. It's the first one we're going to do, and we plan to do a few of these sort of semi-regularly over the future. And so today we're just essentially answering your questions that you've put forward across any of the number of platforms that we're on, be it Facebook or YouTube or things like that. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to your podcast, YouTube, your favourite podcast app, things like that. And also we have the Snowy's Camping Show on Facebook. So if you like this Q&A session that we're having today, that's an awesome place for you to be to throw ones up for us in the future. So we have this little bucket in front of us, or bag, I should say, and we've got a couple of questions in there. So
have you looked at these? I had a brief look over them.
I did have a very brief look over just to make sure there wasn't like one coming out saying, Ben, what's your favourite undies? You know, things like that. But
people want to know.
People do want to know.
I'm quite excited about this episode because there's no real research behind it. Really, we're just kind of going to wing it and let you know what we think on the fly. So,
yeah, totally.
Pretty
excited. You go first.
We go first. All right. Now there's Facebook and YouTube, so we'll try and get the names and everything right. Yeah. So this one came off of Facebook. It's from Colin on Facebook. Great idea for a show, he said. Simple question. I'd like to ask, what is each of your favourite piece of camping equipment? For me, this is probably, I jumped straight to the first thing.
Ask the hard question. First thing you pack.
It's an easy one for me, and that's my coffee.
AeroPress.
AeroPress, yeah. And I you know what? I just recently got one of the little Porlex coffee grinders that was recommended from the group. So thanks, guys. I can now grind my beans fresh. So it's my extra favourite piece of camping equipment. But not just camping though, because it also goes to work with me just about everywhere. It's always in my backpack. But I guess outside of that, my favourite piece of camping equipment, that is a hard one, right?
It's a really hard one because I did sort of, Colin was one of the first question answers on our shout out on the Facebook group. And so I saw it a couple of days ago and I've literally been racking my brains because it was really hard to just pick one thing.
Yeah.
I think so one of the first things that comes to mind for me is recently I bought the brand is called Cecil & Co, but I know Hillbilly do one as well.
Yep.
And it's like a 15 litre galv bucket that is a hot water system that you sort of put in the fire. It's got a spout and it's got an insert that sort of has a funnel in it.
Yep.
So when you fill it up with hot water, you stick it in your fire, and when the water is like really hot and boiling, you tip cold water in through the funnel at the top, which forces all the hot water to come out of this spout in the side, which goes into another bucket or something.
Continuous hot water thing.
That's right. And one of the reasons why we got it as well, because I've talked about my shower setup being like a little 12-volt thing in a bucket, but because this is a galv bucket, it can go straight in the fire. You can fill it up with half water and pull it out, and the little sort of insert that you put in if you want to make the hot water and the spout and the cold water, whatever, you can pull that out. So it just is a straight up bucket and you can take that straight for your shower. Yeah, right. So it's got like really good flexibility.
Yeah, good for a bigger group. Oh, you've got a reasonable size family.
Well, yeah, there's 6 of us. And the last time I used it was on a trip where we had friends come. We had a mate with his daughter and then another couple and their 2 kids and, the 6 of us. So you just pumped out hot water, didn't have to think about it. Was so good.
Yeah. I reckon thinking about it as we talk, I'd have to probably say a solar panel because I really love the idea of just being unplugged and just having my own power, and I've got cold food and everything I need just from the power of the sun. Yeah. So, that's a bit more of an expensive buy. But
I think another one of my favourite pieces is a scrubber wash bag. Because it's just so easy. It's just like this dry sack essentially that you can use to hand wash your clothes. If you haven't seen it, check it out online. But it's like essentially a portable washing machine, but it packs up to not much, bigger or smaller than a wallet or a purse or something like that because it all just rolls in on itself. And it's so great because if you're going away for a couple of days with the kids, especially, you just do a load of undies or a load of kids' T-shirts or things like that, and you don't have to pack heaps of clothes because it does the job. And I really like that as well.
We've given a few different options there. As I'm going, I'm thinking of something else now.
I know, I'm thinking, I also really like this.
I've got a little pop-up X kettle. See to someone X kettle, and I love that. It's just because I'm the only one in my family that drinks coffee. It's just enough for me to boil stuff in the morning. It packs flat. And it pours easy. Yeah, easy to wash up.
The only other thing that I would think of that I really love is I've got like a hillbilly fire spike with the cooking accessories that sort of swing on and off the fire. I just really like that because you set it up once at the beginning of your trip and you can cook breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever. And it's just so easy and awesome. But I think that hot water system is probably my favourite so far, the little hot water bucket and the scrubber wash bag. They're my two.
That was a bit of a blurry answer anyway.
Blurry answer, but
yeah. Sometimes the simple things are the best.
True.
Your turn.
All right, my turn. Let's have a look here. Alrighty, so this one is from Janet off Facebook, and she's asked, how do I figure out the best small option for recharging my phone when camping away from power points and a stationary vehicle? Say for 4 to 5 days, can it be done?
So that's it's probably a long question, but we'll answer it simply.
Yeah, interestingly enough, Janet, awesome question. We've got an episode in the works coming up all about portable power options for hiking, which is super small, lightweight options for powering your devices. So that'd be a really great episode for you to check in with. But straight up, I would say 4 to 5 days, depending on how often you're using your phone. If you're just sort of using it as an emergency contact device or if you're wanting to take photos or what you're doing with it. But I'd say 20,000 milliamp hour portable power pack.
Yep, I would have said it. Yeah, like a power bank. Yeah.
Yeah, like a little portable power bank. It probably wouldn't be that much bigger than the size of your phone.
Yep.
Already, maybe a little bit heavier.
I'd have to agree.
Recharge it before you go.
And charge it if you can off USB in your car when you drive.
Yep. Yeah, because that would, on average, I'd say like with my phone, it sits around 4,000 milliamp hours. So that will probably give you 4 charges over 4 or 5 days, which would be more than enough, I'd say.
Yep. Should we keep moving? I don't actually know how many questions are in this pocket here. So how long we should spend on each one, but let's see. Another Facebook question from Jacob. This is a long one, right? So, hi guys. I currently have 50 millimeter thick self-inflatable sleeping mats for my family car camping trips. I'm finding lately that the mats don't self-inflate as much as they used to and aren't as comfortable. I was thinking of going for a hiking air mattress with insulation so they could also be used for canoe camping and the odd hike. Do you think these would be a good option or should I consider something else? They'd be a good option. I've not actually slept on the air-filled ones. So Jacob's referring to like Cedar Summit and Climate as well is a brand we've got that have there's an airbed, right, with Primaloft or some sort of synthetic insulation in between. They pack up much smaller. They're an inflatable product. So what I do like about a self-inflating foam-filled mat for camping is that if you do get a puncture in it and it goes flat, you've still got a bit of insulation to sleep on. So you don't have to be quite as precious. So I'm more precious with my hiking stuff because I know it's a trade-off lightweight for durability. So it's not as durable because I'm carrying less weight. So I've got to be a bit more careful with it. But for camping, especially when you've got kids, I think probably a foam-filled self-inflating mat is a good idea. Plus you've got a bit of extra room for it. But if you just want to buy one mat that is for canoeing and hiking, then I'd say it's probably not a bad choice.
Probably not a bad choice. We have the Cedar Summit Etherlite mats, which is that sort of air, and I find them quite comfy, but I'm not sure if I'd want to have it as sort of like your daily camp, your camping mat. Just from the sense that they are ultralight and they are comfortable after a big long day of hiking, but whether or not they're going to give you that same level of comfort, because I don't know about you, but when I'm hiking, I have different comfort standards than I do when I'm camping, especially sort of family camping and things like that. It's not uncommon for self-inflating foam mats to sort of lose their self-inflating power over time because obviously all the foam cells and stuff inside that expand to draw the air in and whatever, they do get tired. It doesn't mean that the mattress is past its life though. It just means that you need to get a little extra pump to pump up some air and give them a bit of a hand, especially depending on how much they get used. But it's really common, even with the Xped mats that, are a real good couple of $100 and they're like the Rolls Royce of mats. After a couple of years, we'll still need a bit of help getting them up to the way you like it. So
especially if you store them rolled up. If you store them rolled up, they're going to take longer and longer to expand.
Yeah, I mean, they are bonded mattresses, so technically there's no harm in storing them rolled up, but also at the same time, if you think about that foam being in like a permanently compressed state, if you go camping maybe once every couple of months or, 6 months between trips or whatever. I would, having said that though, 5 centimeters self-inflating mat isn't super thick. Like usually people who are getting self-inflating mats for camping would go for like the bigger, thicker 10 centimeter ones.
Yeah.
So if you're used to sleeping on a thinner 5 centimeter mat, you probably could get some hiking self-inflating mats that are sort of closer to that
probably.
Thickness and still be okay. Another one probably worth looking at is the Exped Sin mats.
Oh, yeah.
Which have they're still an air mat, but they have the long baffle tubes and they tend to have a fabric. Yeah, like
9.
Yeah, you can get them in a 7 and a 9.
Okay.
But they've got like more of a fabric cover, so they're not as crinkly when you move around and not as noisy. They don't pack as small as some of the sort of Cedar Summit or Climate Air ones.
Yep.
But they still pack quite small, much smaller than a sleeping bag for the most part. So that would be, because I'm actually looking at upgrading my kids to those mats just because if I have to take 4 huge camp mats and all the stuff we've got to take for 6 people, bulky. So, and I was really impressed because I've done the product review videos on those ones and I was really impressed with them.
Okay.
So I think that they'd be a probably quite a good all-round mattress if you're wanting something to do with canoe camping and stuff as well.
So there's a trade-off, I suppose. If you want one for everything, then it's probably a good choice. But ultimately, if you want comfort, then a 10 centimetre thick foam-filled mattress for camping is probably better.
Yeah.
But, I think I agree with you. With hiking, you trade off a bit of comfort, usually because you're exhausted by the end of the day and you'll sleep on anything.
Yeah.
It's not quite as comfortable, but if you just want one for everything, then probably those Sin mats are a good option.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for the question, Jacob.
Yeah,
that was a good
Jacob.
one.
Your turn?
My turn. Another Facebook. I think we might have them on in order.
We did shout out in Facebook.
This is from Keaton on Facebook. Hey guys, would love your opinion on the Outdoor Connection air tents as there is not much unbiased information out there.
I'll probably be straight up with that. I don't have any experience with it, but in terms of the brands, I think they hold really high standards when it comes to quality. They're not flashy or anything like that, but they have a focus on just making good quality materials. And quite often there's things that they put into their tents. They've done it and sort of don't tell anyone why they've done it, but there is a reason why they've put certain elements into it. So I would say that they're equally comparable to Zempire being another high-end air tent. They're sort of leading the way in air tents and they're a little flashier, but I would personally put any Outdoor Connection product up there with a really high quality
I
make.
think Zempire are really the pioneers in this particular area, and I know they've been around for almost 10 years, their air tents and things like that. So I think that some of the newer brands that are coming in, whilst they might not have had the same amount of years behind them in sort of product testing and tweaking and things like that, they do have brands like Zempire who have done all the hard yards to look at and sort of compare design to and get sort of ideas for and things like that. In terms of the Outdoor Connection air tents, similarly to you, I don't have personal experience with those tents, but I do have personal experience with the brand. And one of my sort of perspectives in terms of judging whether or not a brand is a good brand is a lot to do with their after sales service and their after sales customer support and how sort of committed they are to their own brand in providing that ongoing support, education, all that sort of stuff. And I love dealing with the Outdoor Connection. I think they're a really awesome brand to deal with. Anytime anybody has any Outdoor Connection products that they need help with or whatever, you can contact Outdoor Connection. They're so responsive. Yep. There's a woman called Peter there who I've dealt with quite a lot in trying to track down bits and bobs for customers. And I just I feel pretty stoked to handball a customer onto them because I know they're going to get looked after. So from that perspective, for me, I'd be more than happy to encourage customers to sort of invest in that brand purely from that point alone, because if there are going to be any troubles, you'll have no issue getting it sorted. So
they're not a massive company, so it's in their interest to sell good quality products.
They're out of Queensland, I think. They're Queensland brand. I don't know if they're sort of family owned. I read a little bit about them, how they were sort of started by a fella who loved camping and
been involved in the brand for quite a long time. But they make good stuff.
They do.
So it's just not as flashy as some.
Yeah.
But no problems there. Let's keep going. Thanks, Keaton. Another Facebook one.
Another one.
Beds, stretcher versus air versus self-inflating. Particular consideration for those with back issues, knee issues, hand issues, i.e. comfort getting up off the ground, putting things together or closing valves. And they've also said camp showers types and advantages. Camp showers, we've got
an
something
episode,
in the pipeline, so we'll sort of shelf that one, keep an eye out for that.
I think it's actually episode 22 will be camp showers.
So that's pretty soon.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Check it out. Anyway, we've got a whole publishing schedule going on. We sit somewhere in the middle there, but keep an eye out for that episode, Naomi. So we'll leave camp showers for now, but we'll cover off on the beds, stretcher versus air, so air bed versus self-inflating.
Mm-hmm.
So stretcher, I guess, is going to be dependent on every individual, right? Stretcher is going to suit someone who doesn't want to get down on the ground. So
yeah. What have they said? Consideration for people with
those with back issues, knee issues, hand issues,
mobility issues.
So I guess there's always going to be a little bit of issue with like hand issues because so the valves can be hard to put in some.
Pros
some
and cons to everything, isn't there?
Stretchers, you're going to have to put it up, and there's going to be bits where you need to kind of stretch the bars in place. So there's always going to be a bit of fiddling around. It's going to be very dependent on your individual situation. But I'd probably say stretchers definitely for those who are getting a little bit older maybe and just want to be able to put their legs over the side of the bed, get their shoes on
not
and
have
stuff.
to get all the way down to the ground.
Absolutely, yeah.
Stretchers are an awesome option, I think, because even though often sort of the last piece that you're putting in the stretcher, the bed's under tension and you have to put a bit of muscle in, it's usually got that bit of extension bar which gives you a good grip on the handle. So it's not like you're doing sort of small, fine motor stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You just need a bit of muscle with it.
Yeah.
But I think the only thing about a stretcher is they don't have insulation value. They don't have R value.
So you're probably going to need a mat.
You're probably going to need a mattress on top of it at any rate. I would say I'm not a massive fan of air mattresses personally.
No.
Hiking air mattresses are like a very specific kind. So that's a totally different subject. But in terms of camping air mattresses, I don't think I've ever come across anybody who's used one more than a handful of times before it pops or punctures or whatever.
They're a little bit old school, aren't they? Like it's how it used to be, but now we've got these 10 centimetre self-inflating mats, even up to 15 centimetre self-inflating mats, which are you can much better.
Patch up air mattresses, but I think the percentage of chance for them to fail is a lot higher than any other mat style, and they're really easy to puncture. Like even to the point where you could have, if you have kids in your house, a hard piece of petrified cheese in your carpet and put an air mattress down, that could be enough to puncture your mat, or zips on your clothes or things. It just really can be quite sensitive. And I think if for this particular question, I reckon stretcher and self-inflating mat combo would be the better option.
Yep.
New self-inflating mats or the newer types tend to have a two-way valve in them, which means that when you are deflating, the valve will only allow air to go out. It won't let it back in. So if you do have issues with your hands or you're a bit arthritic or whatever, having that two-way valve is helpful because when you're pushing all the air out to roll the mat, you're not having to also fight against air coming back in.
That's the hard thing,
But with everything, if you do have those sort of issues, if you invest in a good product, after the first couple of uses, you'll work out a way how to pack it up and put it away and get it sorted for yourself without too many issues.
Yeah. So I reckon in terms of a question, if you've got back issues, knee issues, then probably stretcher with a mat's a good idea.
Yeah.
If you don't, then I'd go, agree with you, I'd go foam-filled mattress over an airbed. If you're just looking at a cheap camping setup, then an airbed's going to get you by, but you're probably going to end up upgrading to a foam-filled one anyway.
Yeah, totally.
I think we've talked 20 minutes. It looks like there's a big pile of questions in there. I'm not even sure we're going to get through all these in this episode. Maybe we need to split it up. We'll see how we go.
All right. Oh, Christ. Sorry. Right. Haley from Facebook. How to limit the amount of sand and dirt little feet bring into our swags? Good question. We have a 3-week trip planned with a mixture of beach, bush and campground swagging with a 2 and a 5-year-old. I always sort of generally have not stressed too much about it because I think there's not a huge amount that you can do about it. You know what I mean? Sometimes it goes into the too hard basket. There is sort of ways you can manage it by having shoes at the door, and even if it's just slip-on shoes, it's better if they've got shoes on when they're outside because it reduces the amount of stuff they have on their feet to begin with.
Yep.
having some sort of matting, like those little foam hole mattings and things like that can be good to just stomp your feet a little bit to get stuff falling off. But also often I'll have, if I'm going away, and in the past when I've been tent camping, if I've gone away for any period of time, having a little dustpan and brush inside the doorway just to sort of brush off the feet and sort of keep things a bit clean.
I agree with that. I've got a dustpan, shoes outside. You can, I think it's we don't sell it at Snowy's, but I think it's called muck mat.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of those.
Synthetic grass mat that just goes at the door. There's something else you've got to carry, but I always have a mesh ground sheet and shoes off on the outside. But don't stress over it too much. You're going to get dirty in there. Try to keep it out of your bed, but you'll get a bit in the tent and then just sweep it up.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Let's keep going. We've got one from, I don't even know what this means. Oh, group requests.
Oh, so that means when someone has requested to join our Facebook group, they've put a question in there.
Oh, okay. That's what there's DENIECE.
Denise. Yep.
Is that the name?
Yeah. So Denise.
Denise. That's an interesting spelling of the name. I've never seen.
Me either. But Denise has requested to join the group.
All right. Well, welcome aboard, Denise. We'll answer your question. There's a lot of women camping solo these days. I'm 59. Would love to hear about products that make camping easier and safer for me. Well, I'm probably a little bit out on this one.
In terms of sort of maybe easier and safer. Easier in terms of things like, your instant up tent ranges, and there are lots of sort of products out there which are really straightforward and easy for people to put up on their own, like if you're a solo camper. So like your sort of 4-person instant up tents are pretty good, things like that. In terms of safety, I'm not too sure because there's not really a huge amount of products out there designed around safety when you're camping. I have heard of some things that solo female campers do by taking an extra an extra chair or things like that. So when you're at your campsite, you've got a chair out, you've got a second chair there. So anybody who's coming past might just assume there's 2 people there. I know one of my friends actually has things like empty beer bottles in her car and she puts a beer bottle out and things like that.
Oh, righto.
So there's just some things that you can do if you are a solo camper, especially a female camper, just to sort of give an illusion, I guess, at a glance that you're not the only one there, and then people might not pay too much attention to you.
Okay.
But I don't have a huge amount more experience on that. I do know that we have in our Facebook group and in our camping community some older single female campers, like solo female campers, I should say, and even younger ones as well. So if anybody's listening and has a bit more to contribute, because I'm sorry, Denise, we probably haven't contributed a huge amount there.
No, but I think you're right. There's 2 people in particular that come to mind in our group that will probably have a wealth of information.
Absolutely.
Here.
So getting some more info on that would be awesome.
And all the basics as well. Make sure you got communication, bug protection. Make sure if it's cold, make sure you're sleeping warm. There's all the basics, obviously. But you probably covered that. But ask on the group. I'm sure there's heaps of wealth of knowledge.
And sort of like caravan parks and camping, maybe where there's more people around.
Yep.
Things like that. Alrighty, what do we got here?
Let's see how many we've got left in here.
Jess from Facebook, what are your thoughts on camper trailers versus tents for young family camping?
Oh, I reckon it's, if you can afford it and you're happy to tow, then it's good. If you've got a family, it could be good. But I do think just do your research around how long it actually takes to put a camper trailer up. Because sometimes it sounds good, but it actually takes just as long to set that up as a tent. Once it's set up, you potentially get kind of a bed sort of up off the ground and a slightly better sort of setup, I suppose. But there's more maintenance. You got to store it when you get home.
Need to the towing element of things.
There's a lot more to consider. So there's no best way there. For me, I can't be bothered towing. I don't want to store a caravan, a camper trailer at home. I'm happy to put up a tent. I'm going to do an extended trip at some stage. Maybe my tone will change on that after I've done it over sort of a good number of months. But I'm happy with a tent. But then I've got other families who just they take the camper because that's what they just said they wouldn't do it any differently. So
I've never personally had a camper trailer. I've always sort of done tent camping with my kids until we've upgraded to the van, and I've found that pretty straightforward and pretty easy. The only thing that has sort of frustrated me a little bit about it is that you have to pack literally everything sort of from scratch, I guess, or not from scratch. You can set up like boxes and tubs with things in it, but you've got to pack everything. Whereas I guess the advantage of having a camper trailer, which I had growing up with my parents, is that your kitchen and majority of your camping staples, even your camping chairs and swags and everything can be packed in a camper trailer. And often all you have to do is pack your pillow and your bag of clothes and then chuck them in and away you go.
Yep.
So there is a lot of convenience from that respect. And I think sometimes if you have something like that, you can get away a lot more frequently because it's not such a big deal to get out the door to begin with. But again, it could take you, especially if you've got really little kids and there's two of you and you're trying to set up a camper trailer and watch where your kids are going, whatever, it could take you anywhere up to an hour to be properly set up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just bear that in mind, I think.
It's a bit like an instant up tent. There's an instant up element, but then the rest of it takes quite a while.
Yeah.
So I reckon if you can afford it and you've got somewhere to store it and you're happy and you can and are happy to tow with the vehicle you've got, then go for it.
Do it for sure. Agreed.
Yep. Next question, Facebook. We're still on Facebook. For men and women, best rain jacket, best down jacket, best sleeping bag. Well, couldn't put my finger on a best one. Best rain jacket, it's going to cost you money, but get a breathable fabric. There's Gore-Tex and a lot of other similar fabrics out there.
Because we don't sell clothing, so we don't sort of have the same level in-depth knowledge of sort of different options and things like that.
No, I have worked for a manufacturer in the past, so I have done for a long time, but I haven't done it recently, and I still couldn't, even though I've worked for a manufacturer, I've sold many brands, and there's if you're spending $500 on a rain jacket, most of the jackets in that range are going to be awesome. Pretty much the same.
Totally.
It's going to be Gore-Tex or Pertex or Hydronal or some breathable fabric like that, and they're all going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
The only differences you find are in extreme environments. You might, if you're talking like you're in minus 40-degree temperatures, one of those fabrics might perform better than the others after you've exerted yourself for 40 minutes because of the way it breathes. But the average user is not going to find themselves in that situation almost ever.
I had a really awesome Mont Gore-Tex jacket that lasted me like 10 years. It was amazing. Had a really good hood, really good coverage, high neck, zips under the arms for breathability.
Yep.
Yeah, it just was amazing.
Yep, I've got
really
a
good
Mont
investment
jacket that lasts for ages. But Arc'teryx is another great brand.
Yep.
These are brands. Obviously, we don't sell these, but One Planet's another Australian brand.
One Planet's awesome.
They all make really good stuff. The same goes for down jacket and sleeping bag. Really, I mean, down jacket you can get a cheapo one that's probably going to suit around town. If you want something,
on what your technical requirements are.
That's right. Yeah. If you're using it in really cold environments and you want windproof, then you probably want to look at like Gore-Tex or similar exterior fabrics, and then also have a look at responsibly sourced down and that type of thing, where it comes from, how it's produced. It's not plucked off live animals or anything like that.
Yeah.
And sort of the loft and how it's measured as well. So once again, can't really put my finger on a best there. Same with sleeping bag, and probably this all goes hand in hand. Really, everything in that $500 range, is probably going to perform pretty similarly. You probably need to crawl in it, make sure you fit in the bag.
Personally, I'd go with down over synthetic though. In terms of a sleeping bag.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, having used both, I really love down. I'd reckon that's definitely the investment. And I think the downside is if down gets wet, doesn't perform as well, whatever. But I would literally just buy a bivvy bag. If you were ever going to use a down bag where you were concerned that it's going to get wet, I'd just have a bivvy bag. Yeah. But personally, I really love the Cedar Summit ones. I reckon they're one of my best brands.
We do have I like Cedar Summit brand, and there is a reason behind that. There's no sort of prompt or benefit for us in mentioning that, but they do make really good products. And their latest bags, they've made sleeping bags for a while now. They were later than some brands coming to the market, but the latest ones are really well.
I just love how they do a women's specific bag because, Ty's mentioned men and women. But for me personally, I have like a very womanly body, and their women's specific sleeping bags are amazing. And I hate sleeping bags, but their women's specific ones are so comfortable and fit so well. And
and the bag, have a look at the EN rating. If it's just a manufacturer rating on the cheaper ones, you're not really sure if that's temp rating's right. If you look for the EN or ISO certification, it's going to give you a level playing field. So if you're comparing a $500 bag and they're both rated at -5 in that EN or ISO rating, probably going to be pretty similar, and it's going to come down to you going to crawl in and make sure your shoulders fit, make sure it's long enough, make sure you're comfortable in the bag. I don't know, you can do whatever you need to do in the bag.
We have a Cedar Summit Sleep Systems episode as well. So
check back on that
worth checking out.
Dean from Cedar Summit. Spoke to us. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
You got a bonus question there.
I did by accident. Okay, quick question from Christopher off YouTube. Recently bought a brand new sleeping bag, down sleeping bag, but noticed that it has a strong smell. Kind of stinks like a wet dog, and I'm wondering if the down inside is bad or something is wrong with the bag. Is it normal that new down bags stink? Thanks. Yes, it is. Totally normal. It's a natural fiber, and when it comes to you, it's been sort of, I guess, compressed or packaged for a really long time from the manufacturer to your hands. So it's just been stewing in its own smell, similar to, say, merino products. They can have a smell with them as well because, again, it is a natural fiber. It will go away over time. Some people who are sensitive to the smell really just cannot stand it and send their bag back. But personally, it will go away. Best option is, if you can, to store it open, hang it on a coat hanger or something like that, somewhere that's airy and breathable so the smell can just sort of dissipate over time. It definitely will. Some people choose to wash it, and sometimes that can actually make the smell worse because the down goes wet, and then when it's drying it sort of smells a bit more. So just keep it dry, air it out as much as you can, and be patient.
They come to us quite often vacuum sealed because it's a voluminous product, so it comes from overseas, so it's all vacuum sealed. So by the time it reaches us, it has been packed up for a long time. But quite normal. Air it out, just hanging out.
Stick
in a nice
with it,
breezy
and it
day.
will get better.
I think we have some YouTube comments, but
that one was from YouTube.
This one's for me from Helena on Facebook. Here's one for Ben. Would you take a hiking tent on your regular car camping trips, or do you use a larger tent for those trips? Or do you have an AGM battery in the car or lithium? If not lithium, will you make the switch eventually? Well, I'll just do a quick one on the batteries. I just have lead acid batteries in my car at the moment, and I think I've got auxiliary and main battery. I have them both the same type of battery because then when I charge it, I can use the same charger from both. I would like to make the switch to lithium, but then I need to consider the fact that I've got a lead acid and a lithium battery, and I need kind of two different charging profiles for that. I would like to make the switch for the weight, but before we get into too much detail on that, I think we're trying to line up something around battery chemistry in the hopefully not too distant future. So I would tune into that because we're going to pull in an expert who can maybe dig a bit deeper than we can.
We can pick their brains.
So I won't go any more on that one, but I'll answer the other one pretty quickly too. Hiking tent or regular car camping trips. Okay, so B, C or BK before kids. My wife and I had a full drive and all of our trips were just our hiking tents. So we drive and we take hiking tents. We never had a big tent. We had a kid and I reluctantly bought this because I'm used to my tent fitting in my backpack, right? And I reluctantly bought this big sort of 20 kilo family tent.
Yeah, that's RV5.
No, this was an old, it was a Black Wolf, the old version of their tough tents, which is quite good. It was a hard jump for me to go from a 2 kilo tent to a 20 kilo tent. Nowadays, with kids, yes, I have an RV5 and I take that for outback touring and family camping. I've got kind of that tough dome, plus it's a big one if I'm doing long stay camps. Then I take that because there's heaps of room for the kids inside. So if we don't have kids again, I guess I'm going to be older, so I probably would not take a big tent, but I probably wouldn't go back to a hike tent just for car camping trips.
Yeah.
I'll probably take something I could fit a bigger double mat in, I reckon. Yeah.
Totally. All right, next question. Here.
We thought this was going to be a quick episode.
We did. Hang on. Arthur, YouTube. Which tents on the market are the absolute easiest and quickest to put up and down for a newbie?
Air tent.
Air tent or the Instant Up. They would be my two ones because they literally just, you take them out of the bag, you sort of fold them open, you walk in, you push them up, you click, you just hammer some pegs in, put the fly over. So, or if in the instance of an air tent, you just plug them in and pump them up.
Yeah. I'm probably going to throw a bit of a spanner in the works here and say I don't think you can go past a basic dome tent.
No, I don't think that that's a spanner in the works at all. I think they're great. Like Zenpai do a Neo range, which I think is amazing. It's got a bit of a geodesic design, so it's got an extra couple of poles to a normal dome tent. But I think in terms of sort of economical option, they're easily repairable because you can buy tent pole repair kits that suit those dome tent pole things for like $30 or whatever. Super straightforward. Tend to not be super heavy.
I mean, the dome tent, just with the 2 poles. You got four pegs, right? 2 poles that are across. You clip the inner up, and quite often there's 1 pole in the awning at the front.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really easy thing to set
and
up.
They can be quite, what do you call it, like wind resistant and whatever. So like because they have the dome shape. Yeah.
They're affordable.
Yeah.
I think we've reached the bottom. Is that the last one?
I think
know there's still a few. Okay, this is Callum, who's just joined the group.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to get both of your thoughts on the future of Australian manufacturing with the camping and hiking touring sector. Seems a lot of the market has gone overseas to compete, but I'd personally like to support Aussie manufacturing and Aussie jobs as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
How long will it be around for before it's all outsourced internationally? We could probably go on for a long time on this, and we're probably running out of time today. But I think support Australian wherever you can, because I think since all the COVID stuff has happened, there's a bit of a switch back to supporting Australian made, and a lot of Australian manufacturers.
There are a couple of points that I want to make on this. Yep. The first one is where it's like saying it seems like a lot of the market has gone overseas. To be honest, it happened 20 years ago. It's not a new thing. It's not changed. Yeah. It's not changed. It's not a new thing. It's only because of the last 18 months and the disruption to supply chains and getting things in and out of Australia and all of that sort of stuff across the board, like from your big brand stores right through to different industries, has been affected. It's thrown a spotlight on it.
Yep.
So at the end of the day, it's not a new thing. It's been happening for a really long time. Made in China or made overseas doesn't necessarily mean a reduced quality. And I think what people need to understand from sort of my perspective is brands choose to offshore manufacture because there are no options in Australia. And that's the reality of it. We're not a manufacturing nation. Somewhere like China is a manufacturing nation. It's one of their biggest industries, and it's like a multi-billion-dollar industry. And the reality behind it is, because it is a multi-billion-dollar industry, there is so much money in there to invest into technologies and advancements of machinery and construction techniques and all sorts of different things. So like I remember 10 years ago when sort of Icebreaker as a brand started coming out more and more and more, their merino stuff was made in China, and the CEO of Icebreaker just stood up and said, look, we cannot find anywhere in the world that can make this merino fabric as fine in as good a quality as China can, because their machines are hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they've got this investment and they're making this product that we can't find anywhere else. And that's why we've gone there. Similar to Cedar Summit, they might design a product from scratch, which they do. They design the entire specs of everything they make. They go to their manufacturer and they say, this is what we need. Their manufacturer says, we can't make that. There's no machine in existence to make it, but we'll make a machine that can make that. No one in Australia can invest hundreds of thousands of dollars into making a machine to do something that doesn't already exist in the world.
It's a big topic.
It's a massive topic, but that's the reality of it. So yes, 100% support Australian made wherever you can, because whatever industries in manufacturing that exist within Australia that still operating because they're viable. So invest in that. But it's not China. Stuff made in China or stuff made offshore doesn't equal poor quality, and it doesn't equal not supporting Australian brands either, because Australian brands that are family owned and operated do still have stuff manufacturing in China, and it's still an Australian company, it's still an Australian brand, it's still an Australian family. So I
think that was well said. Yeah. Just have a look a bit deeper on not just where it's made, but there might be a percentage of it done here and a percentage of it outsourced.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think we're nearly done.
Or two questions. Al from YouTube, what do you think of the really cheap Kmart and Big W tents?
This is a good one following on from the last one, right? Yeah. I think you can probably sum that up as you get what you pay for. If you just need a tent for one night, then it's probably going to be fine for you. If you're looking for a tent to survive you many, many years of use, being in the sun, really sort of poor conditions, lots of rain, then look, it might get you through, but you might also fall apart much earlier.
That's sort of, I know of quite a few people who do have Big W, Kmart, sort of those big, what are those stores called?
The department store.
Just a big department store sort of thing. My issue is, even though they might be a great tent that does meet your needs, A, longevity, like you just mentioned, they're probably going to have really poor longevity. B, you're not going to get spare parts. you're not going to get spare parts or product support, and you're most likely not going to get super great warranty follow-up either.
Warranty is usually with those things. If it breaks, they just replace it and then it goes to landfill, right? Yeah. So it's not just an upfront thing, it's an ongoing thing that you got to have a think about too.
Yeah, so you do get what you pay for. If it meets your needs, sort of great, but don't expect it to be long-term and don't expect to get parts and after-sales support.
Good one. Last question, I think. We're at the bottom of our pipsqueak bag here. Okay, I apologize if I get this name wrong. Sinanovic from YouTube. Would be cool to see some of the setup you guys talk about. Ben's setup seems quite interesting. Well, this is probably an easy one to answer. We have discussed this a bit, and I do plan on, I've got some trips coming up and we're trying to line up me, rather than packing my car just for the video, actually packing it while I do it and using it. I keep saying everyone's going to be bitterly disappointed because I've got such a simple basic setup, but if people want to see it, I'll show you, I suppose. So keep an eye out. We do have that in the pipeline. Yeah. We've got no dates that we can commit to there.
Not at all.
But it's something we would like to do. And I'm sure the same with your van.
Same with the van, yeah. It's still fairly new. We're still sort of working through it. So it's not something that I want to sort of go through in great detail or on film or anything while it's still a bit of a dump while we're sort of still working things out. But when it's all finished and set up, absolutely. At the moment, just really basically though, we have the Mitsubishi Sprinter. It's got 6 seats in it. That suits all of our family. We've got an elevated bed platform in there, which we store all of our stuff underneath the bed, kitchen stuff, everything like that. Kids sleep in a Swagger 3P tent. I've got one for each sort of 2 kids. They've got a couple of mattresses in their sleeping bag. We'll probably upgrade to smaller mattresses, as I mentioned earlier. And then obviously we've just got our chairs and our campfire set up. We do have a camp kitchen cupboard type thing. Okay. It doesn't tend to come with us unless we're doing more summer camping or out of fire season camping, because I don't take a stove unless it is in those seasons. Otherwise, always we will just cook on a fire. Okay. But I just have like a smaller table and a couple of plastic tubs. I keep sort of for the most part food and stuff in categorized tubs, and they just slide under the table. We've got a fridge that sits on the edge of that as well, and just sort of have a prep table and sit around the fire and cook off the fire and just chill out like that. So,
well, I've got an extended trip coming up, and most people are shocked when I say extended, I'm talking months. They can't believe we're just taking a tent. Yeah. I'm not towing, so everything's in the car. GVM's going to be a difficult one to manage, but I'll get some videos on how I'm going to do it. I'm still not quite sure how it's all going to work out, but I'm working on it at the moment. Exciting. So, I think we're done. That was probably I reckon that's our longest episode ever. And we thought it was going to be quick. So
yeah, we did, but it was cool. Good fun. It was really good fun, and it sort of gives you an opportunity to think about stuff a bit more in depth too. Yeah. Thanks again for joining us, folks, for another episode. We will see you again next week, and in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening, and also jump onto our Facebook group and join in the discussion as well. Thanks for being here.
Thanks guys.
Ben.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.